Wow! Welcome to the deepest dive on Like a Dragon Ishin, Part 1, covering the prologue through the end of Chapter 4. Wow. I'm Leo Vader, getting you hyped up. Jacob Geller's also getting you hyped up.
That's me, from Joshi to Goshi.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Sarah Podzorski
or the other way.
Yeah, to heck with the Shogunate, am I right, guys?
Yeah, boo!
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 And a very special guest with us for the duration, Michael Hyam.
Hi, thanks for having me, y'all. This is dope.
Absolutely. I'm very excited. Okay, before we get started, Yakuza history. I played Kiwami 2, 0, 7, and this. Do we have any super Yakuza experts here?
Sarah and I, aren't we Yakuza sickos?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you know the
I have
answer
played
to that.
Yakuza 0, Kiwami 1, Kiwami 2, 3, 4. I'm working through 5 right now because I'm trying to play them in order.
Okay.
Got a little stuck on 5, took a break of it to play Ishin, and now they're like coming out with Gaiden, so that's like I'm just getting further and further from 7. Just like it's like on purpose at this point. But yeah, big Yakuza fan.
Okay, so you haven't touched 6 or Like a Dragon yet?
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Yeah,
they are literally releasing them faster than you can play them.
I can play them, honestly, though.
Yeah. Yakuza means a lot to me, man. I got into 0 in 2017 when it first came to the West, and then from there I was like, oh, I'm playing this whole series. I played Yakuza 2 before Kiwami 2 came out, so I played that one on the PS2. Running composite cables through my HD TV. Nice. I did what I had to do. You know what I'm saying? Then I played 3, 4, and 5 on the PS3. And then fought very hard to get Yakuza 6 on GameSpot's top 10 of 2018. Did not succeed, but I did succeed, or a couple of us succeeded in getting Yakuza Like a Dragon on the top 10 for 2020. And I reviewed that for GameSpot as well, and it was my 1A and 1B for Game of the Year 2020 was Persona 5 Royal and Yakuza Like a Dragon. So got a lot of love. Cosmic Kiryu is my boy. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Nice. Ryoma now.
Yeah. And I'm the newest, I guess. I have only played Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon. That's my only one up until Ishin. So I think it's cool that we have like the full spectrum.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I'd be like, because we know like who the villains are going through this game. Obviously, like you know who some of the villains are. Immediate red flags in certain situations. You know who like the cool people are, and I can't imagine going in and just being like,
well, you haven't.
I don't know.
You haven't played Like a Dragon, Sarah. Like those characters are in it, so I have some knowledge of like who everyone is, kind of in the broader context. But I'm sure I am missing 10 times as many things as I'm picking up.
But it is great that we all run the gamut, and we do all love the franchise here. That's why we wanted to be on this and wanted to give this the time of day. It's a busy time of year. We've got the Resident Evil 4 Deepest Dive coming up soon, and it was easy to go, we're going to do that, so we wouldn't have time to do this. But I said I'll host it. That's the way it gets done, because we need to talk about this game. I'm excited for it.
We had to fight for this one.
Yeah, and before we get started too much, I do want to remind every listener that on the Patreon feed, you do get the audio version of this podcast if you want to listen to it on the go, because it's going to be a good 6 to 10 hours of conversation, and you get access to the audio version of that. And you get to submit comments, you get to be in the Discord conversation about Ishin with all of our wonderful community members who are playing it along with us. It's a great way to support the show and to support conversation around this game, because I mean, please look around. Tell us if anybody else is covering it like this, the way it deserves.
Yes.
So I guess no better way to start than at the beginning. Am I right, folks?
Yes, sir.
Honestly, I wasn't too
right.
hot on it at the start. It took a minute for me to warm up to it. What were you guys thinking as you began this really unusual Yakuza experience?
I agree, especially coming off of Like a Dragon, which is so quirky, where it's like the main character of that game is himself so kind of zany and entertaining, and the world is very silly and kind of offbeat. The first couple chapters of this, there was some cool stuff happening, but like even like 2 chapters in, I was kind of like, I'm not getting this, and then just somewhere in that second half of what we played, it clicked, and I have been essentially like nervously chewing my nails until I could start playing it again after this podcast. So I'm not sure exactly when that happened, but like somewhere in chapters 3 and 4, I was like, all I want to do is play this game right now.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel like in the beginning they do you get a lot of like history, right? They literally give you a paragraph and they're like, here's what's happening in Tokugawa era Japan, and you're like, and you don't really see the effect that it's having, right? When they just like slap a paragraph in front of you, and you don't really know what's happening in Tosa, because you arrived in Tosa. They're throwing all this terminology at you, like Joshi Goshi, high samurai, low samurai, like you're once again an adopted son, and it's just very meaty in the beginning. So it did feel a little like you were kind of like a big fish in a small pond when you were back in Tosa.
Yeah, I felt the same way too, that they front load a lot of that historical context up front, and rather than showing you, it's a lot of telling you, and I think that's one of the things I believe would say it would turn people off, but it is a lot. It's a lot to get through, because I mean, you don't necessarily have to know exactly what they're talking about. You don't need to be in the history books to know what's going on, but they do throw it at you in a pace where they'll reference it later on, and they're like, wait, what's the shogunate again? Tokugawa, like what's the Bakumatsu period, and all this other stuff. So it's pretty heavy in that regard, and compared to other Yakuza games that like really hit you with like a big intro, like in Yakuza 0. When you start beating up dudes and throwing their heads into urinals and trying to fight your ex-bosses, it makes a really good, strong first impression. But this one here kind of takes its time. It's a little bit more chill. It does have that moment to kind of really set the tone and show you the class divide during this time in Japan, which I think is like it kind of, yeah, that really embodies that time period, and tries to show you straight up like what exactly Ryoma is going to be fighting for and what his like compatriots are fighting for. So you kind of know what the Tosa loyalist party is, like what their deal is. Like, oh, they're trying to start a revolution because they want to upend the caste system that currently exists. So that's a good hook. But from there, it's a little bit slower, but I don't mind.
It's got that Yakuza dryness of a lot of introducing characters who have responsibilities and titles that I don't totally understand. But I trust it at this point to like give me reasons to dig into those characters later on.
I do like that in the first 5 minutes you have just a classic instance of like two asshole samurai like hit a woman, and your guys like, all right guys, get ready to fight, and they're like, if you touch us you're gonna die, and he's like, guess I'll die, like, and that's just like that happens immediately. And so we're like, we do know that he has the same energy as Kiryu of like, if you hit a woman you're done for, dude.
Yeah, like that's a good moment, because that was when I was like, oh, okay, this is that same dude. I know. Right. And I think that's a theme as they start to introduce more characters in the beginning of the game, is like your first impression of them is exactly how you remember them from all the mainline games. And I think that's really cool. I mean, like, as someone who's like been playing who has played the entire series, and Sarah, you're almost caught up with the whole series. I can imagine.
Almost. It's got to be another year.
Just 300 hours away.
You're close. You're close enough. Yeah, it just, I don't know. I felt like right at home. Like when Kiryu started throwing hands, I was like, oh, that's my guy. He'll protect me. Let's go.
Yeah, I felt the same way. And it's especially interesting because they are still like they're telling this very historical story, but the Yakuza characters are in it, and they kind of make it more of a Yakuza story, right? Yeah. Like it's not historically accurate whatsoever, but it's like we see like returning characters like in their same roles, right? Like Date is still an investigator, Majima is still crazy. Like they like kind of twisted it to turn into more of like a Yakuza, dad dies within the first chapter of the game, and now like Kiryu's got like a one set mind on like how he's gonna avenge his father. Like it's very much still a Yakuza story.
Yeah, like almost beat for beat, especially like oh, Dad's dead. Guess I gotta avenge him. And it's like,
yeah.
Yep,
And his friends are like, you realize that that's really stupid, right? And he's like, I don't care.
He's hard-headed again. Like, it's
exactly.
same dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think actually before we get to like any of that, just like the prologue cutscene, like the very, very beginning of this game is so cool, and something that I just kept writing down was like, I cannot believe how good the cutscenes look.
Yes.
Like especially
that's what I said.
Especially the kind of, I mean, the weird thing about these games is there are like 5 levels of production value that any particular scene can have, and so it's like the lowest is like dialogue boxes and no one is even like moving their lips, but the highest, which are these like pre-rendered scenes, like I can't, it might be like the best a video game face has looked on my TV. And I kind of don't even know how much credit I should give it because it is pre-rendered, but like games talk about pores all the time. This is one of the first games where I like care about the pores. You know, it's like, I can see his like, I'm like, I think he shaved like 2 hours ago, and you can see like the beginning of stubble. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it was such a shock to like coming from Yakuza 5. I'm not used to like higher graphics in most Yakuza games. So like I can't even recognize some people. I was like, has Kiryu ever been this hot before? He looks incredible.
He's aging great. On that opening cutscene, we had a comment from Not on for the first time we did a group Google Doc for the community to just kind of submit along the points, talk about the prologue, talk about chapter 2, talk about the sub-stories or whatever. I think that was a fun, cool new way to do it. And again, that's something patrons can contribute to. They said the cold opener cutscene of the Shinsengumi invading during a rainy night is a mirror of the opening cutscene for the first Yakuza game. Not to spoil that game's start, but I found it to be a really interesting way to call back to the series' roots. It's a signal that this is a new beginning for familiar characters with a twist. From Not.
Right. Yeah. That's good. That's a good call out.
Good way to ground it.
Yeah, because I remember in Kiwami, like that has like the same thunderstorm that lights up his face, and it's just this really dramatic thing. I almost forgot that that's how the game opens up, because that was like one of the teaser trailers before the game released. So when I saw it when I was playing, I was like, okay, I already seen this before. I forgot that like that is actually like that is a really good like set piece in media res kind of thing to tease what the rest of it is. And like to Jacob's point about like pores and that rain is coming down and like, oh, so many hot dudes were getting their samurai swords ready. I'm like, oh damn, I can't wait to know what everyone else here is up to. But yeah, that scene in particular is top level stuff.
It also, I mean, right off the bat, and there are like several instances of this, but it made me think of there's this very good Polygon video from like 3 years ago that I think around when Sekiro came out, called Sekiro and a Brief History of Spraying Blood All Over the Darn Place. Wow. That's kind of talking about this visual language of like kind of samurai media and like a lot of, you know, Kurosawa films and also like Sekiro and other games, of just that big kind of like slash and then just like a geyser of blood coming out of someone's chest, and this game very quickly establishes like, yup, that's what's gonna happen here. You know, like when you slash someone, they're going to explode.
And that's how you know that something real happened, not the kind of knockout slashes you're doing to people in gameplay. In a cutscene when somebody gets slashed, you see the consequences.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to a comment about basically, you know, learning to understand this setting, because there's that glossary feature that more and more games are having now that I love, where you press that button and it highlights the confusing word in the sentence. But as Crowboy points out in the Twitch chat, the glossary is for Tosa 75% of the time.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was such a good, well-meaning idea, and like that they just didn't implement fully. Like they just implemented it for for places, but they don't do it for like names or like historical figures or like any kind of like Japanese word. Like I don't think they did it for Joshi or Goshi in the beginning. I don't know, but it was 80% of it. I click on it, it's always Tosa. It's like, I get it. I get where it's located.
Yeah, which you clicked it because there's a different confusing word that's not addressed.
Well, you have to kind of click it really fast too. If it's like auto dialogue, you're like, oh God, what was that?
True, but a comment here says you can adjust a setting to highlight the glossary terms in conversation so you know what you're going to be reading about if you don't want to hear about Tosa for the 100th time. That's from Fred.
Beginning!
Yeah.
I know. That should be the default way.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Saved me a lot of time to stop pausing conversations, says Fred. Yeah, silly.
I do think, though, I mean, like, in regards to, like, the Goshi and Joshi thing, you know, it's like, I'm sure there are many historical aspects of the game that I am missing, but I do think they do a pretty good job of being like, here are the things you really need to understand, and we're going to make it pretty clear to you. You know, like I feel like the kind of the fundamentals of just like, this is what the class structure is, and like these are kind of the two parties that are around and doing stuff. You know, it's like I feel like I'm getting that, and I know absolutely nothing about this time period. And so like I do think maybe just in using the same tropes that the Yakuza games have used before, they're able to kind of like, you know, land the player in this world pretty quickly. Right.
I want to highlight this comment here that I for sure still have and didn't lose completely. Early in the story, Will Dane wrote in, I'm often drawn to the villain of a story. I find Takechi and the Loyalist faction extremely compelling. Takechi's charisma, stern demeanor, and political ideology won me over. However, there's clearly more he's not telling Ryoma. I have no doubt he will be important throughout the story. Where do you see his character arc going? Now, Michael reviewed this game for GameSpot, so we'll be bowing out of speculating. And we don't blame you.
I'm trying to get that cash, you know what I'm saying?
Respect. But I also find him interesting. I think this first chunk we've played has been a good just like sampling of that arc specifically, as you go from trusting him to kind of going your separate paths as he what are we thinking of
I mean, and also brother? Not, I guess not to jump too far ahead, but like the scene where you go your separate paths is like one of the kind of cinematic highlights of the game so far. I think just like that scene is electrifying.
Definitely.
The one where Ryoma dips out by jumping off the cliff and says, "Peace, I'll be back. I'll be back in a year."
Oh, well, I guess I was thinking of the one where he shows up, your brother shows up later, and then he's like, you're thinking of joining them, and you're doing this, and you're both kind of like ethically aghast at what the other brother is like choosing to do following their father's death. I just thought was, you know, because it's like you could totally see both of their perspectives. You know, it's like like Takechi being kind of aghast at his brother makes sense. Anyway, I think they're gonna make up. I do think by the end of this game they will like be kind of like join forces to do something.
It's funny, again, we are jumping ahead, but it is funny. The other guy saying, I think your brother did it. And for a second, I'm like, oh, did he? And then Ryoma's like, no, he was there next to me. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. I forgot. He got me with that one. I remember very specifically the moment I fell in love with this game, which was going to the udon shop and eating your udon, and then the udon shopkeeper telling you about his secret to making good udon. And humping the air so hard he throws his back out, and then you have to make the udon, and it's a mini game. That was when I knew I was in good hands.
That it was still a Yakuza game.
I actually didn't run into this moment.
There's so many shops. I can't believe how many shops you go to, and then that bond bar starts to fill up. It's intimidating, but that's the only one I've like really made a note to memorize that location and go back.
I like how Leo's like, this is my moment. Udon man humping, and then I have to make the udon. He was like, that's what did it for me.
This is my hero's call. For sure. Did y'all have a moment like that? The first sub story or whatever you loved?
For me, it was probably karaoke is always my favorite minigame in any Yakuza game. And so the song E.G. Sakura that's probably like my favorite karaoke song. They have like a J-rock, hard rock version in Yakuza Kiwami, and I absolutely love that song. And back in the day in like 2018, I remember just like listening to that song on my Lyft ride home from work, just like faded as hell. I'm just like in the back of my Uber, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm really feeling this song. Oh man, shed a tear. And I started listening to the folksy version that is in Ishin. And of course, I never got to play it because Ishin didn't come around until this year. And I remember just like listening to it. I'm like, man, I can't wait. I really hope Ishin comes out. So when I finally got to play it, that was the moment. I'm like, yes, I'm in it. This is my Yakuza game.
Beeline.
And I just love karaoke. Whenever I got the chance, and you can do it early on. This is like chapter 1 or chapter 2 once you get let loose and kill. You can pretty much check out a bunch of stuff that you want, and I went straight. Pulled up my map. It's like, all right, where's the purple icon with the karaoke spot? Boom, there. I'm going there, and I was there for an hour. That's I was like,
nice.
That's when I knew. Yep.
I really felt like I was scouting every inch of the map for side stuff, and still looking at these comments, there's so much I didn't do or haven't done yet. On the karaoke tip specifically, John Larson writes in, by a show of hands, who among us has performed the karaoke track Ichizu's Samurai, True Hearted Samurai? Show of hands, I'm raising my hand.
Oh yeah, the one with the FMV?
Yes.
Yeah.
The full group here. When I think of karaoke in Yakuza games, I generally think of a basic rhythm game with heartfelt vocals or background noises. What I experienced with this track, however, was an FMV with sexy ladies in kimonos slowly revealing more of their shoulders as the track commences. It was the most uncomfortable I've been playing a video game in who knows how long.
I feel like this isn't even the first time I've been tricked by a Yakuza game into accidentally watching real women become gradually more and more naked. So, like, shame on me for falling for this twice. But I had absolutely no clue, and I was streaming at the same time. So I'm like streaming on Twitch. I'm like watching this in the background, trying to keep up with the rhythm game. And I'm just like screaming like, no boobs, no boobs, no boobs. I'm like trying to remind myself like, this is still a Yakuza game and they never go that far. But I was like ready to hit eject at some point.
There weren't cameras back then. It's a betrayal to...
Where did they get these women from?
What's also very funny, I have a different favorite side story, but there's like a brothel you can go in later that is the most chaste thing you can imagine. but like this one karaoke song, my favorite side story was there's a thing where I can't remember who tells you this, but there's like, hey, there's an old man and he's here by himself, can you like entertain him? Can you kind of like hang out with him for a while? And so you go into this restaurant and there's an old guy there and you talk to him for a little bit and he's like, hey, yeah, I'm an artist, and I'm here and I'm just like hanging out. And basically he makes you perform both karaoke and the like fan dance for him.
Yeah,
and
dancing, yeah.
Yes, and then he paints a picture for you each time, and he's like, this is how your performance made me feel, and you get to like give feedback on it. And it's just like, it's very funny, and it's this old man like dragging you out for a night on the town, and then when you finish, he has this like very emotional, the thing that the side stories always do, where it's like very, very silly, and then there's like the emotional beat where he's like, oh, I haven't had a fun night since my son died. He took his own life. Maybe I pushed him too hard to be an artist. And it's like, it's so melodramatic, but like, I really liked it. It's like you buy into the kind of sincerity.
It works. My favorite one of those was those 5 guys who 2 of them ate this guy's mochi.
Yep.
I could not solve that. I was so embarrassed.
I thought
it was so much.
I have the notes right here. I was like writing it down.
Yes, that was one of the most funny earnestness to me, was like these 5, they're cartoon characters. These 5 guys who have slightly different hair, who have one factoid about themselves and where they were with this mochi, whether they saw someone else take it or whatever. And then at the end, they're like, we're just sad you lied to us, man. Come on. We're the group of 5. We're supposed to look out for each other. Like them being a group of 5 people is a thing.
They're like, we're not mad you stole the mochi. We're mad you didn't share it with us.
Oh, it's so cute. There was always those moments. The one that spoke to me was there's like these kids that they look like they're 8 or 10 years old or whatever, and there's a boy and a girl, and the girl's family's gonna move away, and he's like really sad, and like he doesn't, or she held out on him. She didn't tell him that their family was moving until like the last minute, and then so he was kind of just flabbergasted. He was like, why would she do this? Was she never really my friend? And Kiryu is the one who has to pull him aside, like, listen, son, you have to man up. You have to tell her how you really feel. Tell her that you were disappointed, and they like make up at the end, and they're like, oh, hopefully write to me at some point, please, like keep in contact or whatever. You have this grown ass man who's taking this kid aside, teaching him life lessons about friendship. Oh man, that's exactly what Kiryu has always done his entire life. So. Yeah, that trend never stops.
And just Yakuza. Like the musical sting coming in of like, here's the moment. This is when the life lesson is going to be. There's another storyline with the kid, which is the boy that just wants any random item that you have to use as a toy. And he gets like, you just give him anything. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, he's explaining why it's so important for boys to have toys to play with, and you're like, why can't you just play with someone else's toys? And he says very frustratedly, there's an inherent lack of equivalent exchange, which is just very funny for like a 7-year-old boy to say. And then I gave him like fresh well water, and he was like, Yahoo, I'm gonna go play with this.
Every boy's dream.
Yeah, that really speaks to, I mean, people who play the Yakuza franchise, even just one game, kind of understands that juxtaposition, that contrast that they have between the melodramatic storytelling, the violence of a lot of these stories, because you are either in an organized crime, or in here you are getting in with political factions and trying to overthrow the government, and then you're helping kids realize their dreams, or old people realizing something new about themselves, and it always works. Like, it always fits, and that's just even in the rare cases where it doesn't, it's like just the fact that this stuff matters to the writers and to the game, they're like committing to it, and you can't hate that. You can't. It's so hard to think such earnestness is lame.
Oh gosh, did y'all do the one with the boy who wouldn't leave his room?
I did that one with a grown man who wouldn't leave his room.
Oh yeah, okay, grown man. Yeah, but it's
Uchitaro.
You go up, and there's one of the things about this is like you are often just entered into these conversations without really. Sometimes you have the option to interact, but often you are just walking down the street and suddenly someone like yells at you and you're like in this conversation. But this woman's like, my son won't leave his room, and you go up there and he's just like sitting in his room surrounded by it's very funny, because it's like, it seems like a very modern story, but the game is, hundreds of years ago. And so he's just sitting in his room surrounded by like drawings of girls maybe. And you try to kind of convince him to come out, and he doesn't want to come out. And it is this like, it's clearly just the writers were like, we should write something about like those boys who are too nervous to leave their houses. But it's set in this historical time period, so they had to figure out like what the version of that would be for this.
It's like, oh, he's in love with anime girls and doesn't want to interact with the rest of the world. Like, listen, back in the day,
so relatable.
Yeah.
A story from time.
Yeah, what I noted about that side story is it's like, he ends up going and helping you take out some goons who are attacking his mom. And then he's like, I want to get back into sword fighting and maybe start a dojo. And that really struck me as Ryoma / Kiryu using his supernatural ability to attract random grunts who want to fight him. Like to get through that situation, to help that guy out.
Right. And then there's this weird agreement between we keep saying Kiryu, Ryoma, and the mom, where he's like, he sees the guys and then he remembers the conversation that he just had with her son, where he was like, well, I like to fight, but also I don't want to fight anymore. And he's like, sorry, lady, you're on your own, wink. And then the mom's like, oh no, I guess I'll just pay these guys. And that, like, encourages the son to run out of his room and come fight. But it is this very, this little bit of theater that they both put on with each other. And I like, Ryoma's like a very serious, like he's just a perfect straight man, you know, like he's always just going to react to a scenario with like perfect sincerity. And so getting him to kind of do a bit is just very funny on its own. Yeah.
Speaking of him doing a bit, I'll have to remember the spelling to be able to find it, but there's the EJ Naika.
Naika.
One more time?
Naika.
Yes.
E-E-E.
Please, Sarah, describe it for us, this quest line.
Okay, the Naika, which I looked up is actually historically accurate, is essentially a group of people who, during this time of incredible political turmoil, have decided to protest by simply dancing, because it's, you know, one of the only forms of protest they're probably allowed during this time period. And they would gather in person. There's some more details that you can glean offline, but essentially in the game they dance and they sing kind of a song, and they go like Naika, yo 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 yo, and that's what they do. Like, that's their form of protest. And Naika literally, you know, they translated it to is why not? You know, come on, like, why not? Like, everything kind of sucks right now. We don't know what's going on. You know, the West is knocking on our door. Our politicians don't know what to do about it. All we can do is dance. And then it's sort of like, you know, there were people who took advantage of it to sort of like steal, do riots, but essentially that was the movement. And they did really actually reflect it pretty well in this game.
That's cool. Yeah, Glad Don't wrote in appreciating that in the very first encounter with that group, at one point during the conversation starting that side quest, the camera just abruptly cuts back to Ryoma doing the dance, which I thought was going to be, you know, drawn out a little bit more. But he's just immediately doing it, and then he's like, oh, I don't really know why I did this.
It's so catchy.
It's like, damn, my bad. I forgot why I was here. So
that part is interesting, and I'm very curious to see like where it goes and kind of this game's broader politics in general, because like on one hand there is this kind of plot line about class struggle, you know, like very explicitly they're like, class is death, you know, that it's just like you live this way, you die this way, and it's clear that the game thinks it's bad. But also like your character is like becoming a cop, you know, more or less, to kind of like find, and it's like acknowledged that he's kind of working with an evil group, but also he's like, maybe I can make the group better from the inside. And so for the first depiction of protesters in the game to be this kind of like frivolous movement where people are taking advantage of it to like steal from a restaurant, I was kind of like, I wonder if this is going to be the game's take on protest. And like, I'm not saying that it is yet, because I doubt that this is the last time that we're going to like see protesters in the game. But I did think it was kind of a, you know, if this was the only time they showed up in the game, it would feel like the game had kind of thought that protests in general were kind of silly, which, you know, based on the other Yakuza games, like a Dragon has some really smart political protest storylines. And so, you know, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's one of the more attractive things about this game. Like, not only is it a point in which you can jump in, and if you've never touched a Yakuza game before, but I think a lot of people are attracted to the time period, and like the samurai aesthetic is like kind of a selling point. I mean, that's what kind of Ghost of Tsushima hangs its hat on. Like, this is a samurai game in like for current gen, and it's, you know, very exciting if you're into that sort of thing. But what I like about Ishin, at least, is that, and like we'll probably get into this later, a little bit more about like the time periods that soon followed this, and I think, you know, glamorizing the samurai is something that people should really take a step back and think more about and look more into as they kind of get into this sort of thing. And but so yeah, the setup in which, because they throw a lot at you, and showing like the Tosa Loyalist Party, like during this time period, like all this setup is very real. Like during this time period, Ryoma Sakamoto was a real dude who was trying to actually gather people up and try to overthrow the government and things like that. So and so going into the Shinsengumi, which is also a real organization who are basically like extra legal cops. They're like the secret police, and they can pretty much do whatever they want. And that really, for me, that like it struck attention because it has so many characters that I know and love, and I really dig their vibe in this context. But also like, you know, they're the secret police of the time. So I don't know. And like the thing with Kiryu is that he's so concerned about seeking revenge that those things don't really cross his mind. I know there's pushback. So at the inn that he stays at, like the owners of the inn really push back on the idea of him joining. But he's so dead set on, you know, this is the only way I'm going to find my father's killer. So I do like that tension there. But at least at this point, I feel like maybe like it does a good job of setting up the historical context. I don't know if it has painted the organizations clear enough to the player, at least up until this point. So
yeah, I would agree with that. Just like going back through history, this is sort of like an all sides suck situation, and the only losers are like the common man. So currently, you know, the game tells you that the Tosa loyalists are like trying to abolish the clan, like the caste system, which as we know it is emperor, shogun, daimyo, samurai is actually pretty high on the caste system. Farmer, artist, and then merchant is on the bottom. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, we just want to like get rid of the caste system. We just want to like make everybody equal. But the reality of the situation is that the Tosa, along with some other daimyo, were just a little upset that they were so far away from Edo. And they kind of saw this as a way to upend the government. They like used this political turmoil and like the West breaking in and like Matthew Perry's ship and all this stuff as a way to basically seize power. And I don't believe that they actually cared about the farmers or really abolishing the class system. It really just plays out more like a power grab. So it's, at least they're giving Kiryu more of like they're giving Ryoma more of a Kiryu motive in this game. Yeah. But like in reality, you're like, all these guys kind of suck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I do think that it was really interesting, you know, and again, it's like, Can't wait to see where this goes. But it's like, yeah, you have the innkeeper and especially her daughter who is like, how could you do this? Like, how could you join these people? Do you not know that they are just like killers for money?
And said they killed my dad. I think she said like they killed my dad.
Which is also true of Ryoma. Like they also killed his dad. And so, you know, and Ryoma gives what I think is a fairly unconvincing speech where he's like, maybe if I'm in it, I can make things a little better. Like, wouldn't you be happy about that?
All it takes is one good guy to make a really bad group of people better.
So, but you know, the daughter who is clearly smitten with him is like, okay, yeah, you know, like that kind of makes sense. But I do think, you know, it's like, I was like, I'm not convinced, dude. Like, I think this is not a good thing.
I can't remember if Ryoma tells them that he's looking for his dad's killer.
He doesn't let on to it. He's looking for like a specific style.
He
doesn't really tell them.
Yeah. I think he tells the daughter, like, I joined because I'm looking for someone. Like he doesn't say like they killed my dad, but he is like, I have a slightly different motive of being in here.
So like he keeps his cards close to his chest. So like at least in that context where he wants as few people as possible to know what his real motives are. So it's kind of like, it feels like he's just giving them like it is an unconvincing excuse because it's a smokescreen that he doesn't want to tell them that like, well, the only people who use the Tenin Rishi fighting style is in the Shinsengumi, so I'm playing double agent right now. I'm sure he doesn't like that's just a little too much for them to know. I think I
do love that setup. Like after the time skip, finding out that he's been, you know, pretending to be this drunk gambler while he's really out trying to identify someone who uses this specific fighting style that killed his dad. That is just such a badass like goal to start with.
And he keeps going to dojos and just beating the crap out of everyone and being like, guess no one here knows it, and then like goes to the next dojo.
Well, that was too easy.
I do on the topic of the game's politics, there was one of the first things that I wrote down was this line that I just like loved from his dad, and I do feel like, you know, the kind of magic of this game is it can have such funny lines, but also, you know, such like the translation I think is just really beautiful. Like I really think that the kind of like poetry of the lines comes through. But his dad said, you know, in one of the initial conversations where he was like, this is my plan for everything. He said, in order to change Tosa, you need to both love and hate it more than anyone else. And I was just like, oh, you know, like that is just kind of like what I feel about so many things politically, you know, and I really thought that was kind of beautiful, and in, you know, this game's clear like love for the place they are and just the detail that is in like every single, you know, marketplace and stand and person and whatever. It's like there is love here. And we also know that the politics are like rotten, you know, that both of these things are true at the same time.
Yeah. Let's sidestep here. Let's do an evade move. A quick step to talk about the combat.
Sick.
Tactical Dreamer wants to know, what combat style are you all using, and do you think you'll be switching it up a lot throughout the game or just sticking to a single style? When they maybe use brawling style in the bathhouse, I felt super underpowered, which made me feel like I should switch it up more and learn them all.
Yeah.
I'm a gunman.
I'm also a gun. I'm a gun main.
You can get away with some pretty egregious things as if you just play gunman in the beginning. You just sit there like bow, 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 bow. All right, I'm done.
You couldn't get to me fast enough.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful early on, but I do find the Wild Dancer it's fun to use. It's a little bit weaker, but what's most important is it's all about self-preservation. I ain't trying to get hit. That dodge is OP. I'm just spinning around. Ain't nobody touching me when I'm using a Wild Dancer. So just mash on that B button and I'm just like spinning around. I think that was my favorite to use. Just because, especially in like some of the boss battles, even early on, you just feel very like if you're not stocked up on health items, you're gonna get your ass beat. So Wild Dancer is like, yeah, ain't nobody touching me.
Mm-hmm.
I have been completing the trifecta kind of. I'm mostly just sword, you know, just kind of like the sword thing, and I am switching it up a lot, and I think that jumping between them is fun, but like I like sword games. I like blocking, you know, I like Sekiro. And so like that does feel like kind of the closest to what I'm used to. That being said, I got my ass beat a lot at the beginning of this game, especially by Nakagura Shinpachi, which was a real like just kind of hit a wall there and was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here.
That was my tough one too. Yeah.
Yeah. Against Saejima, like that fight is like, hello, this is a Yakuza game. Remember that bosses are tanks who are going to beat you if you don't have medicine on deck. And so I think that was the moment when I started to tinker with swordsmen a lot more, because I like Wild Dancer because you can evade a lot, but at the same time, I'm chipping away at their health at such a slow rate that it's like, all right, I'm gonna pick up the pace and just deal with if I do get beat, so whatever. So switching to swordsman, that's when I started to realize like, oh, I can play this game a little bit more technical, maybe like a Sekiro. Of course, it's not the same vibe, but when you can dodge and parry and hit your combos and get knockdowns, I think that's the point when I understood that like, oh, okay, I can play this game as if it was like a Ghost of Tsushima or a Sekiro, because in all the previous Yakuza games, other than Like a Dragon, you had different stances, but they never function like a weapon. And you can pick up a weapon, and I'm just like swinging around a bike and doing a heat move once I knock them down. But here it was a lot more technical than I had expected a Yakuza game to be, and I think that was one of the that was like one of the things that I enjoyed more about Ishin than perhaps the other previous Kiryu-centric games. So like once you get to grips with swordsman, then like you start to figure it out, and it's pretty fun.
Something I do like about it is that I, was maining gun, but you still get those general skill orbs when you level up to put into fight styles that you think you're going to get caught having to do later, but you don't want to put in the time to grind up. And for me, that was swordsman. It was like, I'm not super enjoying swordsman, but I'll put these points in. And then eventually I was forced to use it after I had leveled it up with those side orbs. And I really liked it a lot more once I had some points in it. So I thought that was a smart design there. Aaron T wants to know, is anyone else finding the emphasis on weapons and keeping your distance a little clunky? I think the brawling combat feels the best mechanically, but it also seems like the least viable option in most of the fights so far.
I do think it's clunky. I have grown to like it more as I've played more, but I often really wish I had a lock on. I think I find my back to characters a lot and kind of have trouble, like, it's just, I feel like I'm like attacking in the wrong direction or whatever. And I do think, sometimes it's just, I think that the kind of thing is like, this is a combat system where you're just going to get hit sometimes, whereas if in Sekiro you know what you're doing, you will never get touched, like you can just kind of fly through that game. And this is just like, the range on some of the enemy's weapons, the kind of like timing of them, it just feels designed to like, you're gonna take some hits, and kind of coming to terms with that, and also leveling up so I can take more hits has been a kind of important part of me like coming to terms with the combat.
Are you using L1 or LB to lock? It has like a soft lock on system where if you're doing a one-on-one fight, you can kind of gravitate. You'll face the dude you're fighting, and you'll be able to like circle around them. So
I think
it's
L1
is, or maybe it's both.
Okay, yeah, because L1 is block. But I haven't been clear on what R1 does, except for it's in some special moves. Okay, so maybe that's what I've been missing.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a soft lock. It's hard to like switch between targets with that, but it does keep you facing them, and it is the way to fire while moving when you're using the gunman ability. Which Patrick H writes in, I'm not sure how many bullets Ryoma's gun can hold, but the way I'm playing, I may find out.
The gun has definitely enabled me to be a monster. This is the laziest I've felt in any Yakuza game. I'll enter, I'll just run away, and I beat Shinpachi just with my gun, just by like running and kiting him, and just you just keep shooting, and like you can knock people down if you shoot them from the back, and then you just fire upon them while they lay on the ground. I mean, I hope they don't. I'm worried that I'm gonna get punished for it later, but like currently I'm like all in on gun. I want to see how far. And even in the beginning, they kind of give you like, they kind of shame you for using the gun. Remember when they give you the gun? They're like, oh, only like not really great samurai depend on guns. Like if you're truly skilled, you would use a sword. And I'm like, I agree. I mean, I agree. But like this gun is a lot cooler than the sword.
Yeah,
there's high noon. Like
there's that speech at the beginning about using guns to level the playing field, give everyone a chance without the best sword player education, which was such a weird speech about.
It's like they knew that it was kind of broken, so they need to like shame you going into it, like to let you know that don't do it.
Low on.
But I do also think that's like really historically interesting. Like the thing that it almost made me think of is. What's so cool, this sounds like a wild swerve, but like what's so cool about Red Dead Redemption is it is a cowboy game when like the time of cowboys is coming to an end, and you get the sense that like you are doing this thing that in 10 years is going to be like non-existent anymore.
The end of the samurai.
And
current
so
period that we're in.
And so them giving him a gun and being like, guess what? You don't need to train for 20 years with a sword anymore. Like any idiot with this thing can take on a samurai. And then that doesn't really play out in gameplay, but like I still think thematically it's really interesting to be like, you have trained your whole life to be this thing, and this thing is going out of fashion. You know, that it's not going to exist once everyone has access to these revolvers.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's just like in a series full of funny fighting styles of break dancing and fortune teller abilities or whatever, the gun is the funniest fighting style to me. It's so silly the way you spin around.
Across all the Yakuza games, this one definitely has the most guns in terms of like opponents and like personal usage, which I think is kind of funny in the grand scheme of things.
Oh, yeah. It's also like in contrast, like the cultural shift in Japan where there's very like modern Japan doesn't have guns. There's like no gun culture. And anytime you see a gun in like the Yakuza games, it's kind of a big deal. It's like, yo, this fool's strapped. It's dangerous out there just because they just don't have guns over there. So in this era where Western technology is kind of being proliferated, and everyone's kind of like, oh, this is the new thing. This is the new wave. I got to get on this. It is a very interesting contrast about how guns have been treated in Japanese culture over the years. So.
Are y'all using the like strong bullet types, or are you just like mashing shoot?
I haven't gotten around to crafting them yet, but I do use them when I have them. But honestly, it's so many combos are, XXY to end in a spin with your gun that still work without special bullets and still do extra damage, just not as much extra damage as a special bullet, that I kind of keep it going with no special ammo sometimes, just because it's like I'm still being effective and not spending any resources. So why would I really go out of my way?
Mm-hmm. I did struggle a little bit when I encountered like the armored opponents, and then they're like, oh, like you really gotta, if you have like acid rounds, like you gotta use those. And I was like, oh man, like don't ruin my gun fun.
They're trying to get you to use the other stances.
No.
No.
I do want to say, going back to the Shinpachi fight, that they do that thing where they tease you with immediately after you fight him. There is the thing where it's like, am I gonna have to fight Mad Dog right now? Like, am I just gonna have to do these two things back to back? I was like, I'm not ready. Yeah, I was like, I barely lived through that fight. And one, I just like that tease. Two, that cutscene is so freaking cool. It's they're just having so much fun.
God, because that's your first impression of Okita Soji, and Majima's probably my favorite character outside of Ichiban in like the whole series. Like, I love Majima. I know Sarah loves Majima. So to see him introduced exactly how you remember him, they call him the Mad Dog in here, and it's just like, yup, that's my boy right there.
Yakuza fans, in terms of the cutscenes, like, we're eating good. Our boys look good. The fight scenes have never looked better. The action has never looked better, at least in the games that I've played. And I'm like, oh, feed me. But absolutely amazing moment.
Yeah, Sajima with the sleeveless robe. Oh, I was like, yes, show me them guns, boy.
It's so funny. It's so modern. It's like he's wearing like a denim vest, but he's wearing like the robe.
It's funny. I think that there are some references in the game where their color scheme of what they're wearing is the same exact color scheme as they are in the original game. So you'll notice that Kiryu's normal clothes, he has the maroon red under, and then his over robe is gray. And then when you see Akiyama for the first time, Kogoro, he has just like the maroon red on him. So I'm like, oh, yep, same color scheme. So you know who's who.
Yeah. On the modern note, Adam Harris writes, the English translation is fantastic, even for Yakuza standards. What other games use words like jackanape as an insult from a corrupt official in a nicely tailored kimono? A sole nonverbal question mark as a response from my character to a Shinsengumi captain? Or lastly, Majima's character telling Saito he's got shit taste. I also noted that they call him and his brother call their dad Pops, which felt weirdly modern. And I don't know what
what was going on there, and just shout out to Jason, who was actually localized the series and was nice enough to chat with me in my Twitch chat when I was streaming it. is apparently the Tosa dialect is very distinct. So they were trying to bring that forward in the localization, which is why they say pops. And there were a few other situations where they
There's
used
a lot
some
of, like,
questionable word
slang.
choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they were really trying to emulate the Tosa dialect when they were doing that, which is why, because the pops thing, I noticed that too.
I think it's so good. I wrote down several lines. There's the her name is Ye, but she has the cool lady debt collector. Who's like Miss Tanchi maybe. She told someone to, quote, shut your whole shit breath. Which I thought was very funny. I mean, she's just like, it's very funny to have just like a foul-mouthed character where it's just almost every line that she says is some horrible thing. My other favorite line was in the dojo, the brawler dojo, this kind of like stressed out son says, "Sensei, you're being senseless," which is like a very English specific pun. And I was just like so happy that it was there.
The localization team. I mean, I feel like that's one of the key pillars of the Yakuza franchise is the localization. And like talking to the localization team at Sega, they've mentioned a lot about how they have that creative freedom to do these sorts of things, and how they really found a voice that even when folks like Scott Strickert, who was the localization director for a very long time and kind of led the way for the modern Yakuza from like Zero, Kiwami 2, all that up until Like a Dragon, he's him and like John Reisenbach, who are now, they're no longer like doing localization for Sega. They've really set the tone for kind of, okay, when we bring in a new team, they know what the vibe is for Yakuza, and it's consistent. It's very consistent, and they'll play around with things like that. And talking about the Tosan accent, like they've done that for like the Osakan accent to communicate that through slang and cutting words short, and that's like part of Majima's character in the mainline series is that he kind of carries and is kind of like a focal point for the culture of that side of Japan. So it's nice to see that those things are still consistent regardless of the time period, because like a lot of the things in this game, they don't necessarily fit the historical accuracy. I mean, like there's a lot of things that aren't historically accurate.
Are you telling me my Don Quixote didn't exist in Kyo?
That's another point where I'm like, oh, there's a Don Quixote in every game, so like, screw it, we're gonna put it in this one too, and then we're gonna play the jingle but with different instrumentation, so at least that's consistent.
That's great. Yeah, I guess I was disappointed and surprised when I first started it that there wasn't an English voice dub, the way that Like a Dragon in one game had spoiled me for. But on the other hand, it fits here to have the Japanese voices, and I never really liked Kiryu's English voice anyway.
Yeah.
Can I ask a historical question?
Yes, sure. You may, Jacob.
What do you know about prize tickets historically?
Those historically...
They were just littering the ground, I assume.
I cannot speak to the exchange rates and percentage of wins of prize tickets of Tokugawa era Japan.
I understand why they're left out, because I don't use them. It's kind of like just too long to go through those menus. I think the menus in general are pretty weirdly clunky. And like going through the pause menu and being able to like press A on something multiple times, you keep hearing the sound and it like takes 5 seconds for it to pop up. I too would be neglecting my prize tickets and leaving them around if they were.
Yeah. There was a point when I saw like shiny objects on the floor. I'm like, I'm not picking it up. I don't need to go through this.
Prize ticket.
Someone else can have it.
I'm convinced the scrap paper is just them like folding your ticket over and handing it back to you. Like I'm convinced like you don't even win anything.
There is, if you do the prize tickets enough, you get a different wheel that lets you use 2 at once that has like slightly better prizes. And so it's almost like, we know this game is annoying, so you can do it half as often now.
That's what I needed to hear. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I am surprised at how, for a lot of the things in this game that feel really modern, it is a remake, and some of the stuff feels not even 2014 old, but kind of like 2006 old, where there's like there's no ability to automate almost anything as far as I've found. Like I don't know how much y'all have sunk into Another Life, the farm thing, but it's like I'm like, wow, I have to do this cooking game to use 2 radishes to make a dish, and I have 40 radishes. Like it really things take a long time.
Yeah, listen, in the 1860s in Japan, things took a long time. No, that's a good point though, because like if Like a Dragon is the only one that you've played, this is going to feel extremely dated. And so like Ishin is remade in the Unreal Engine 4, but it uses the bones of Zero and Kiwami. So like, especially coming off of Lost Judgment from a couple years ago, which I think is like the best melee combat that they've done in an RPG game. And that game just looks absolutely incredible. So, and to your point about also just like the kind of uncanny valley between the different levels of fidelity in this game, Ishin definitely feels super dated in many respects. So it makes it a little hard to engage with those things. Like I sunk a lot of time into Another Life. I really enjoyed it. Half that time was probably waiting for Haruka to finish eating my food and telling me it was good. So I'm just like, all right, come on, let's get this thing rolling. So I don't necessarily want to call it disappointing, because I'm just glad that they brought this game over in some modernized capacity to begin with. But it is a stark contrast if you're coming from one of the more modern games that use the Dragon engine.
So similar. Like I was just playing Yakuza 5 and I walked into Ishin and I was like, oh, it feels
the same.
The menu is the same. Like the start screen is the same. The menu is the same. The inventory, like this, it has been the same for pretty much every single Yakuza game I've played, and it has not changed. And there's a sense of like familiar, like I'm familiar with it. It's cozy, it's comfortable, but definitely coming into it, you're like, from a modern perspective, incredibly dated, not very streamlined. Just opening the map is kind of a pain, and then having to zoom in, kind of like compared to other games, there's some room for growth.
Yeah, Nick Terry liked the kind of slowness. This game reminds me of Red Dead 2, combining the best parts of a slice of life and or an action-focused anime. I love that you can have as much or as little of an immersive experience as you choose. Personally, I take my time and try to do a handful of side activities, mini games, and side quests as I casually make my way to the next story mission. Yeah, I think it is good. I really like the Another Life serving of the same thing a lot of things do, of just giving you that real sense of living in that place. I think it ties me to it in a cool way and gives me more to do just as a human being walking around. Yeah.
I like that a lot of those side things are a little bit of a peek into the culture of the time. And that's like one of the things I mentioned in my review, that the Another Life stuff, like farming, cooking, even like trying to keep the fire on to cook, and like grilling fish over the coals, or just like Kiryu having to live off the land. And then even going to restaurants and shops where you look at the food list and like there's barely any like beef or pork, and it's like, oh, during this time they really lived off of noodles and seafood and tofu. So I'm like, oh wow, that's interesting. I'm playing this game. I'm like, oh, what am I hungry for? What am I craving? Like, oh, I could really go for some yakitori. I'm like, oh, they didn't have that back then. So it really puts you in that mindset. Even like the karaoke mini games. Of course, there's no karaoke machine, but it's he's going to perform in front of bar patrons, and even like the dancing stuff. It's like, well, buyo dancing that's part of the culture during the time. So little things like that just like really peer into the culture. And like Yakuza has done that a lot, where it's kind of this virtual tourism, and it's really cool to see that Ishin doesn't, like, the best parts of Yakuza are still present. They've just been retooled to fit that era, and it is a little bit of like an education tool. Like, of course, again, we talk about historical accuracy, but it's like, yeah, at least, it's based off of something that is very real.
Can we talk about the setup for Another Life? Because
yeah,
I think it's very strange.
Can we talk about how Haruka is still called Haruka, and she's the only one that like didn't get a new name? They're like, hey, it's Haruka.
Yeah, that is.
Tell me, as someone who doesn't know her, who's she?
I'll let you take this one.
So she is extremely important through Yakuza Kiwami up to 6. She is essentially Kiryu's adopted daughter. I don't want to spoil what happens in Kiwami, but he not only does he feel obligated to take care of her, but he really feels like this emotional attachment to her. Like, oh, she is basically my daughter, and she's like a focal point for his like emotional growth and the way he kind of wrestles with showing his emotion, because Kiryu historically is just a dude who keeps a straight face the whole time. He doesn't let anyone know what he's feeling. All you ever see him do is beat people's asses. So it's like, oh, this dude is angry all the time. So she's very much how Kiryu plays off of it, and you get to peer into his true thoughts and feelings. And she's important all the way up to Yakuza 6. And for Another Life, it's like, hey, I'm in a real tough spot. My parents died and I have debt. And I'm like 16 years old and I can't pay any of this. So
I'll live with you.
Like,
cool.
You know what?
Yeah,
he's like,
she was like,
I'll buy your house.
Kind sir.
He's like, no problem. You can be my servant.
I will call you my uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I don't know.
You see the same
it's
relationship
such a weird
type.
intro.
Yeah,
but it's like such a weird intro to the situation where he's like, guess I live here now and you also live here, but you make deliveries and you call me uncle. And have you guys gotten to the more awkward cutscenes between Yoma and Haruka?
When you like build your bond level?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
once you start to develop your bond level with her, if you do something like if you sit by sort of like the hearth, or if you go into the bathroom, you go to take a bath, they like instigate like forced familial things between like daughter and father, but it could be easily misconstrued as husband and wife. Depending on how you look at it, and if you don't know what their relationship is.
Like out of context, that's
kind of weird, but you know, I just like to tend my farm and collect my dogs. That's what I've been doing.
Look, as someone who has not played the games, isn't Kiryu canonically a virgin? Isn't
yes.
Isn't that? Yes. Okay, well then I'm choosing to think that Ryoma is as well. And I do want to say, when you go into, and did any of you guys go into a brothel?
I haven't gone in yet.
I did one brothel
like
side
in real
quest.
life or in game?
Okay.
My brothel side quest was in real life.
In historical Japan. Yeah, well, because there's the side quest where you go in and there are a bunch of sumo wrestlers,
That's the one I got.
Which is a good bit. But I was just like walking down. There's kind of like that red light district or whatever, and I was like, I'm doing the deepest dive. I should see what happens when I go in here. I feel very uncomfortable. And you go in, and there's like, it costs a lot. It costs like, you know, what's the like larger denomination?
Yo.
Yeah, it costs one of those, which like takes a while at the beginning of the game. And you go in and there's a nice lady and you talk to her and she's like, hey, want to play a drinking game? And you're like, okay. And then I didn't know how the game worked, so I failed immediately. Like the first shot, I just like splashed on my face. And he was like, guess I'll go home now. And I was like, that was it. I paid like $10,000 for this.
Yeah, there are steps to it. The first time I did it, I was like, oh, damn, I spilled my drink. Damn. It's really cute in the sense that you get that contrast where it's like, yeah, Kiryu's never smashed before. He's
got
oblivious.
no game.
Yeah, he's so oblivious to what a brothel is that he's just there to have a good time and hang out. So it's like, oh, all right.
It is interesting you need this backstory about his admirable virginity and his experience with her in the previous games. Because
hey, he kissed a girl once. We saw it. He kissed a girl. He kissed his FBI girlfriend.
In Kiwami too?
Yeah, did they kiss on a rooftop?
Did
or
they?
Did they
I thought they just
hold
hugged. Oh snap! Damn.
I swear there was lip touching.
He tells everyone afterwards that
she left for America.
And everyone's like, yeah, all right, yeah.
I remember because I remember seeing it happen, and I was like, oh my god, like, is Kiryu about to really actually kiss a real woman? And then she immediately leaves for America to join the FBI.
No, my girlfriend, she's in another country. She works for the FBI.
It's like, all right, Kiryu, all right.
Twitch chat is popping off saying they kissed. They definitely kissed.
Kaoru's my girl. Okay, never mind. I'm not gonna say anything. I just wish the series had more of her because I think she's a cool character. Even though she's a
kicked her
cop.
out pretty fast.
Yeah. She's like in the beginning of 3, and then she's like, all right, I got a job, by the way, so deuces.
A quest that I got but have not fulfilled yet that, again, made me feel, I was like, I don't know about this, is you're in that same kind of red light district, and there's a woman who starts talking to you, and she's like, hey, I want a cucumber. And you're like, you want a cucumber? And she's like, yes, give me your cucumber. And I was like, I don't have any right now, but I've got a farm, so I guess I'll try to grow some. And then I walked away, and now I have grown cucumbers, so I can't.
I remember
wait to see what happens when I return.
Hanukkah, we have an order. We have an order. It's so pressing. We must fulfill this. We must grow cucumbers.
I love how farming works in another life. The kind of Resident Evil 4 inventory style of plotting your farmland. And
it's the most menu-based farming I feel like I've ever done. You can just do everything from the menu. You don't even have to look at your garden if you don't want to.
Yeah, because you're delegating. Haruka is going to have to do all of it.
You're just the middle manager.
Yeah, but I don't know why more farming games don't do it like that, at least with the different ones taking up different space. I feel like that's just a really fun mechanic to me.
Yeah, me too. I enjoyed the inventory, the Tetris I had to play. Tomatoes are 3 by 3. Oh no, I need to move my radishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marty writes in. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just
Marty,
going to say,
not now. Jacob has a comment.
I'm just kind of planting crops at random. I mean, I'm filling up all my spots, but it's I don't know what I need to be growing. And so I'm just kind of okay, I unlocked potatoes. So now I'm going to plant some potatoes. It's I don't, do y'all have how do you make money in this? I'm assuming this farm is where you make the big money somehow, I don't know how.
The big money is to be made in the chicken racing, but unfortunately, I don't have a college degree in chicken gambling, and I tried it, and I had no clue what was going on, and it was probably one of the hardest systems I've ever had to understand in a Yakuza game, which is saying something.
Agreed.
But at least the chickens have fun names, and I just rank them based off of best to worst name, and mostly I lose.
Yeah, if anybody has a full understanding of that, or some understanding of it, please write in. I'd love to read that.
Chicken racing guide.
The whole chat is saying chicken racing.
Chicken racing. Yeah, you can make some decent money farming because there's requests that you can make if you go inside and you go to the corner. You can fulfill requests and get some money and some materials. But you also have to invest in unlocking recipes with using your, what's it called again?
Virtue?
Virtue?
Virtue, yeah.
Virtue? Oh.
Yeah, you gotta use your virtue to unlock new recipes. So that's kind of the dynamic there with the different vegetables, different crops. And when you start fishing, you start getting different types of fish. That's kind of how that dynamic works. I wish it was a little bit more profitable, considering the time investment and the effort it takes to cook these things and plant the vegetables, but I enjoyed it for what it was.
So far, the cooking to me has been intrinsically rewarding. I really like the way cutting the carrots is dynamically making a slice of carrot exactly where you cut it.
It feels kind of like cooking mama.
Yeah.
In a way, but very Yakuza-fied, where the most they can do is a rhythm game at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cute. All the music that plays in the background is so adorable, and then hearing Kiryu, Yosh! I cut those carrots right on time.
And then he always gives it to Haruka, and I'm like, no, Haruka, we need to sell that. Spit that out. Those cucumbers, these pickles are not for you.
Yeah. It's back to Virtue, to get deepest divey on it. There's upgrades, which other Yakuza games have had. Upgrades for getting Virtue or their Virtue equivalent faster. Getting more of it. I found that bothering me in this one. I just feel mechanically, from a design perspective, it makes you feel bad for getting anything except those upgrades until you have all of them. So you effectively don't get any fun upgrades until you're done getting all of them. Do you guys feel that need to get all of them, or are you able to ignore them and focus on stuff you actually want?
I straight up focused on things that I wanted.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could be like me and just not even scroll all the way down that far until like last night, or I was like, oh, I could get it faster. I put it into being able to sprint farther and then just kind of farm and kitchen upgrades. Oh, I guess an inventory. That was the other thing that I invested in a little bit.
The sprinting has actually grown on me. The finite sprinting, which they removed in Like a Dragon, Yakuza 7. But it was, for a while, it was, kind of a filler mechanic I didn't really get the appeal of. But then there are times in this game where I'm trying to really outrun enemies. And maybe it's because I have the difficulty on slightly higher and there's a little more consequences than usual. But like running out of sprint and keeling over, catching your breath and like looking behind you to say, did I run far enough to escape this confrontation? That actually has been an interesting mechanic for me.
Yeah, it's weird because they always put like the sprinting mechanic in Yakuza games, and I'm always surprised when they make me do it. Like sometimes you can see it coming, and other times it just comes out of nowhere. Like with the chasing the pelican down to like get the kid and be like, you have to, someone needs to say goodbye to you. Like I wasn't expecting to have to sprint there, so I'm always surprised how they like sneak that up on you.
That was very funny. My roommate was in the room while I was playing that, and it was like, go chase that pelican down, and it was like, it literally took me 3 seconds. It was like it hadn't even turned the corner, and I was like, can you stop? And they were like, oh yeah, what's up?
Oh yeah, there's like some of the, you run into these delivery boys who, there's like a bunch of drama in like the delivery scene in Kyo, and it's like, all right, you do that, and if you don't have unlimited sprint, it's a little bit more difficult. So definitely, go invest in sprinting early on. I think that'll be that's a key moving forward.
Yeah, good for humans as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of the chicken racing and the complications of that, I want to highlight this message from Sean R. in our wonderful community, who says, if you've played the Yakuza games before, you may be familiar with Rishi Mahjong. It's an incredibly complex game with lots of rules, but I promise I can help you learn. If you have a specific question, just ping me at WeGoGiant in the Discord, or if you want to learn the whole thing, we can set up a time when I can teach people. It's such a rewarding game and it's worth it.
I've always wanted to learn how to play Mahjong.
Me too.
I've accidentally like tried it in multiple Yakuza games. Like sometimes they make you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in 2 you're forced to play it at some point. Mahjong is huge in the Philippines, so you go to any, like I go to any family party and the aunties and uncles are they are shuffling their Mahjong blocks, and they taught me they play with really real money, so I was, not to snitch on the aunties and uncles, but they be throwing down cash on them things, and there's a lot of drama at these family parties, let me tell you. So I always grew up around it, and I feel like at some point I understood it in like playing in real life, and then I just never engaged with it in Yakuza. But it is one of the mini games that you see in every single Yakuza game. So I think it's fun. I'm still trying to learn shogi, but shouts out to Mahjong. Like it's fun.
I'm wondering if this is the time when I should learn it. I feel like a deepest dive on a Yakuza game is gonna be my best shot ever to really dig in, and it'll pay off in every other Yakuza game I play, if nothing else.
Certainly.
Yeah. So Sean R. at WeGoGiant in the Discord, if y'all want to learn that in the community. Thank you so much.
Teach how to play Mahjong.
Yeah, I might take you up on that. Victor Pham writes in, I always love the way the Yakuza series integrates narrative and gameplay, and this one is no exception. I especially love little things like there being a guy that goes around placing stuff in random pots for you to pick up, contextualizing an otherwise very gamey thing. Yeah, I'm curious if there's ever any more to that.
They really like gave him a whole cutscene about how he's like explaining to you how his new life mission is to just like put little surprises places for people. And he's like, only the lidded pots, like very specifically, not unlidded pots, not crates, lidded pots. And I don't know if like any other Yakuza game has tried to like justify finding random things in the environment like this one has, and it's like within like the first 20 minutes of the game, if I remember correctly. Like he stops you coming out of like an important cutscene and he's like, let me tell you what I've been up to.
Which, yeah, that's cool, man. I would not have questioned it.
No.
It's a video game. Yeah, Like a Dragon Yakuza 7, though, does do the interesting justification of you just dumpster diving when you're finding random items.
Oh, yeah, you're just looking under like vending machines. I like the kind of historical version of what might be like a, I don't know, like a hologram place or something. That place where you fight scarecrows.
Yeah.
Did y'all go in here?
That's not historically accurate.
Right, no, but they were like, well, I guess he wouldn't have like, you know,
They had like automatons, essentially.
Yeah, they had to find some way to like fight robots. And so it's just this scarecrow house where a lot of them also, they seem kind of like combat puzzles. And the ones for like the wild dancer specifically, I'm like, I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. I tried because I was just hankering for more content, and so I kind of went back there after putting a bunch of upgrades in, and I still have no idea how you're supposed to complete some of them, but like you can fight scarecrows if you want.
Yeah, this game's got some good podcast content like that. Some stuff where you're like, oh, I'm going to dig into this specific side thing, and I do not need to give it my full attention.
Yeah, like I haven't even touched that. Like I put how many hours into this game and I still haven't even touched it. I think that speaks to like the level of mini games that they have in like all the games, but Ishin especially is just like, here's the greatest hits of what we've done with the game. So yeah, there's gonna be things that you're not even gonna realize was available in this game.
Yeah, so full of that stuff. This one moment, this is out of nowhere in this conversation, but we can't accidentally leave this episode without talking about this moment. Hayden B writes...
The bathtub scene. Oh.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say.
That's 100% what's coming. And you know what? We should have done the most common comment thing that we normally do on Deepest Dives, but with this Google Doc, people can like see what other people have already written and not comment that thing, but still, there are a lot of comments about the bathhouse scene. Hayden B writes, man, I've got to say, I wasn't bought into taking this ride with the community a few hours in. The story setup was interesting, but walking from waypoint to waypoint to get to it wasn't engaging. Then, the bathhouse scene. Are they about to fight naked? Oh, wait, am I about to fight naked? There's that Yakuza goofiness I was looking for. Needed that wake-up call to remember what series I was playing to hook me back in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the commitment. They're not wearing diapers. They're not wearing underwear. It's fully nude, baby.
The steam cloud conveniently follows their nether regions, no matter where they are in the combat.
Yeah, that was a little obnoxious.
Tasteful.
But yeah, you run around and there's just like this little cloud following you.
It's like, come on.
Yeah, no, maybe if you upgrade your sprinting all the way, you can go.
Funny thing though is that they. Now, I'm not saying censorship, but they nerfed this scene. From the PS3 version or the original version that came out in Japan, they nerfed the scene because there's a halfway point when it has that phase transition where they grab each other's asses, or was it Kiryu grabs Ryuji's ass and like fucking tosses him, and you can't see him smack his ass because the cloud technology in Unreal Engine 4 is too powerful.
There's a certain like
Damn.
Kiryu Ryuji fights to me, especially when they did that really dramatic like wrestling on top of a building in their Yakuza. Like I've always felt like Kiryu and Ryuji just have a certain like energy between them, and I've always said to myself like, wouldn't this be better if they were naked? It feels like they should be naked right now. Like this feels like classical Greek wrestling, and then they delivered and they were like, you were right, Sarah. It would have been better if they were naked.
Yeah, look how much better this is.
I mean, and that whole scene is so funny where you're talking to the other guy for information. And so you walk into the bathhouse and he's there and it's like, all right, time for dudes to just hang out in this hot tub. And you're like
make some room.
You're talking to him for a while. Enormous hot tub. They're sitting next to each other. And then just the scene where it's like, okay, and this other guy is like kicking down the door. And he's like, what? Can I not come in? Can I not also like hang out?
And I love that long conversation. And then the third guy comes in and dips his toes in. And they've just been having this casual conversation. And this third dude's like, this is boiling. This is way too hot. And that's just how badass these two guys have been. That's such a funny reveal.
Yeah, I love that again, it goes back to the point that these characters are consistent with their original versions. That tension that Kiryu and Ryuji Goda have in Yakuza 2, where it's kind of like this respectful rivalry, where they know that they're both these big, strong warriors, and then Ryuji's like constantly goading Kiryu to fight, like fight me, and then in here it's like the same vibe as Yakuza 2, but the fact that they're naked makes it the best encounter that those two characters have ever had.
I will be honest, when I saw them naked and they didn't have the tattoos, I was like a little Like, I don't know why I was
That's right.
confused, but like
Yeah.
seeing them without the tattoos, I had to like remind myself like, oh, it's not Yakuza. Like, this isn't supposed to be really Kiryu. This is since I was, but it was like a little, like it kind of like put me more in the moment. But I was like, oh, I didn't realize how much I cared about watching them rip their shirts off and like bare their tattoos.
yeah.
But then I was just like, like there's something missing here.
It is. I mean, that is a great point because it's like it feels like and again, even only in Like a Dragon, it's like when they take their shirts off, they are like revealing a new part of themselves, very literally. Where it's
That's
like,
right, it's symbolic.
It's like look at the commitment. It is freaking like stenciled into my skin, and in this, it is just kind of like, hey, look. I'm naked. You're naked too, and it feels a little more goofy. And also, when you win, you get a loincloth. Like that's what you like get at the end of the battle. It's like some underwear that makes you better at bare knuckle boxing.
Yeah. Zalathar in the Twitch chat says it's cool that they put the tattoos as wall paintings in the bathhouse.
Oh,
I'll be honest, I missed that.
Whoa.
too.
No, you're looking somewhere else.
Didn't even notice that.
Wow.
Interesting. JC
Says a lot
Ice
about
asks
us.
for a censoring Steam outfit they can wear everywhere.
That would be cool. I'm sure they'll mod
yeah.
it on PC.
Yeah.
Just running around with a Steam cloud.
They'll probably be modding some going a little further with the mod scene on PC. Let me tell you something.
A lot of improvements to that
Yeah.
scene. Anybody else bring notes to the table? What haven't we covered here? What are the big beats? As Ben Hansen would say.
I really like I like just how much idle dialogue is happening whenever you're walking anywhere. The city, the city really feels alive. It feels like people are in it, but especially time period based. And when it's like late night and you're walking around the city, it's just like everyone who's out is drunk because like no one else is out. And I just wrote down that at some point a guy said, "I have drunk 34 beers." That was like his little dialogue balloon.
Well, you didn't have Twitter back then. You had to just say it.
So he just had to say it.
I thought a lot about like if I lived during this time period, what would I even do?
Yeah.
It's like, I would probably be drinking a lot of sake too at night. Like that seems fun. I would be doing karaoke and buyo dancing and drinking lots of sake and drinking 34 beers at night.
Yeah. Did you guys notice the drunk people, if you sprint into them, you knock them over and they just fall asleep on the ground?
Oh,
Oh,
I didn't notice
back
that
up.
part.
Yeah. Everybody I knocked into did that.
that's so funny. I really liked just the aesthetic of the. I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff I like about the open world. I like that it's pretty small, at least at this point, that it's like, it kind of just feels like two different areas of, the same city or whatever. I also liked, I feel like you don't see many games with like this kind of direct lighting, if that makes sense, where it's like so many of the scenes in this game are just like middle of the day, completely unfiltered sunlight like falling down, and it almost has like an older gen aesthetic, but because the game looks so good, I just think it looks really cool to have like harsh sunlight be lighting everything up. It's just like straddling this line between old and new gen in a way that I find really interesting.
I agree. Now that you've said
good.
it, I agree.
And I think one of the things I did want to bring up was the cutscene where all the Shinsengumi captains are finally in the same room, where Ryoma is introduced as the third captain. I think that was probably the scene where I was 100% on board, where, it's like, I have a couple questions about where this thing's going. I don't know if I'm attached to it the same way that the other games have done. But that moment was so sick. Like, I think that's the moment where everyone's personality kind of came through, where you see Majima like being kind of a dickhead, laying on the ground, not taking things so seriously, and seeing in the game, his name is Todo Heisuke, who if you play Like a Dragon, you will know that is Tianyun Zhao, who is probably the hottest character in all of Yakuza. Sarah, when you get to Like a Dragon, I want you to meet this boy. This dude is like.
Is he the one with the glasses?
Yeah, he's the one with the circle glasses.
Okay.
Yeah. So
well, and I had a question about that because I mean in Like a Dragon he has kind of like a weird and complicated character story, but he's Korean in that game. Like
he's Chinese. Or yeah, he's Chinese. Jungi Han is Korean. Tianyun Zhao is Chinese.
But yeah. he's in the Korean gang though, right?
No, he's in the Chinese gang. He runs the Chinese Luo Mang.
Oh, okay. Yes, You're right. I am mixing them up.
Yeah, but the dynamic is similar because not to talk about like dragons for so much, but like one of the big key pillars of that is how other Asians are treated in Japanese society. Right. So Chinese people are outcasts the same way that Koreans are outcasts, and they have to like live in like the slums of Japan because they face levels of discrimination there. But anyway, for the purposes of Ishin, he is Japanese.
Right. I guess I was wondering if that was going to be some sort of subtextual thing or whatever, because he looks exactly like he did in that other game and whatever. But, you know, it's like, I'm happy with him just being that character. I was excited when he showed up.
Oh, he's adorable. I love him. But yeah, that scene where you get to see all the captains in the room, I think that's the moment I think people should be paying attention to the most, because I think, you have the historical, like a lot of the historical context that kind of throws at you and expects you to understand right away. And then some of the relationships between the characters. But I think that because the Shinsengumi is a focal point from that moment forward, where you get an idea of the internal conflict in the Shinsengumi, and you have some captains who are kind of assholes, who want things a certain way. Then they have other captains who want order. And then you have Majima chilling in the corner like, I just want to fight people. And then you have Kiryu in the room who has ulterior motives that he's not telling anyone about. So there's a lot of good tension that is communicated in that particular scene that you can read a lot into. That's Yakuza always has that scene that you always remember when characters are first introduced, or that speaks to their personalities. That's the one right there where I was like kind of on the edge of my seat, even though they're just like talking to each other. I was like, ooh, I feel uncomfortable in this room. It felt
very similar to like the old like Tojo clan scenes where like all of the captains are like sitting in the chair, and then you have the head at the front. Like Majima comes in late. It just felt
like plops on the chair and says, all right.
Yeah, it felt very, very casual.
Yeah.
Felt very like it felt like, oh, okay. I recognize this situation that we're in right now. Yeah. I'm just wondering how, having not played past like into chapter 5, they're gonna, because right now Kiryu's like, first of all, he's been like promoted multiple times because he did the Tosa Loyalist. They were like, you can be second in command. And then he had to leave. And then suddenly the Shinsengumi's like, you know what? You can be the third captain, which seems like a really big deal. And I'm like, who keeps promoting this boy? Like, yes, I agree. He's like amazingly talented, but oh my God, like 2 promotions in the span of like a year. And
also, when are they going to start paying me? Like,
I know.
Your innkeeper is like, hey, you'll be able to afford to like buy this in soon. And I'm like, I can't. Like, I don't know when my check's coming in.
I was like, I blew all my money in chicken racing.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen with that, if there's more to his getting brought in than we expect, because Glubtrub wrote in, so can we talk about how bad Ryoma's plan is? He decides to join the Shinsengumi because he knows one of its members is the man who killed his father, but if he fought the killer a year ago and looks exactly the same, wouldn't the killer be able to tell who he is immediately? I think that's a great plan. I'm thinking that that'll be covered.
He's like staunchly against the Shinsengumi. Like, they go against everything he believes in. He's like, what's the worst that can happen?
I don't know if this is a line of dialogue anywhere, but at least in my headcanon, it would be that if that person reveals themselves to be father's killer, then Kiryu has succeeded in his mission to begin with. So it was like mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, right. As long as the guy doesn't just like stab him in his sleep or something.
I was saying, like, he could easily snitch and be like, that's the dude. Shh, don't say anything to him. That's the dude. Get him when he's not looking. Like, Kiryu's so stupid. He's such a dumbass.
Yeah, and he had that whole argument with Takechi, his brother, and Mukuro Guy. And when he was telling him that he was joining the Shinsengumi, the guy was like, "Are you dumb?" are you stupid? And then they had a fight, and Ryoma was just like, don't you know how much I care about finding Dad's murderer? And Takechi was like, don't you know that there's like bigger things happening right now? And I feel like this is one of the games where I'm like finding it hard to side with him. Cause I'm like, no, like he's kind of right. Like finding the killer's like not gonna bring your dad back. And like, it's kind of weird that you're like joining them, but like, I'm not complaining 'cause that's where Majima is. Like, it's such a weird setup. Like the story makes sense. It feels like if you just describe the story, it makes sense from a Yakuza's perspective. But then if you like look at it, you're like, this actually doesn't make any sense. But hopefully something happens.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think I had to convince myself of how much Kiryu cared about his dad.
Yeah.
Because you don't get a good sense of it because in the first chapter he dies, like he gets murdered. So you never get to really understand like how deep their relationship goes. I was like, yo, they have a very deep relationship. I'm convinced that Kiryu, the only thing he cares about is avenging his father. That's all right. Let's go. Like he's dumb and he's too emotional.
He's an idealist.
And like the whole thing about like with Takechi, who's someone's like, the point is that we need to carry out Dad's dream. He doesn't care about us avenging him. What he really wanted us to do was change the world, change the country. And I'm trying to do that. And you're too dumb. You're too.
You really like missed the messaging there. Like
it's like, you just get the sense that he's just not a big picture guy. You know, like he doesn't really think about like political movements. He doesn't, you know, like he's kind of set on his thing. I did want to say, I think the whole idea of centering the search around a martial arts style is so cool. Like we talked about, I think it's so cool that you can, because like the motion capture is so good, you can see when they start using it. And even though we've only fought like 2 people at this point who know Tenon Rishin, the thing where they like hold up their sword and they have their other hand, their like palm on it. I love that games can kind of be that specific where you can see that and be like, I know what that is. I know that's, you know, Tenon Rishin. And I also wanted to bring up the thing that we haven't talked about yet, which is the second part of the tryout where he goes to that kind of like abandoned house with Hijikata, and he's like, okay, kill this guy. Like here's your real tryout for being in this force. This guy's a traitor, just kill him. And you know, characteristically, you fight him and win and then refuse and he dies. But I feel like that should have been immediately the moment where Ryoma was like, not worth it. Like if I'm gonna have to.
Disappointing because he was like, come join us for some brewskis and babes. And then I showed up and he was like, kill this guy. And I was like, first of all, that's like Sera-san, who I really liked from the Yakuza series. And like he had the fact that like they introduced this like pretty interesting character from the Yakuza series. And they're like, now kill him. I was like, man.
Yeah, and he's like a big boss in the mainline franchise. So I was like kind of surprised, a little disappointed that that's what y'all did with him. Damn, hate to see it.
That's what I was saying. I was like, where he's really already dead. Like you just brought him in just to let me kill him.
Yeah, but I will say that Mine or Hijikata that dude is hot. There's a bunch of hot dudes in Yakuza. Come on,
so many hot dudes.
I know, but like Mine especially because he only shows up in Yakuza 3, and that being the first PS3 game, like the fidelity kind of wasn't there. So it was nice to finally see him.
I literally can't recognize some of them, like from the older games. Like they look like with the updated graphics. I'm like, who? Yeah. Like I had to Google some names.
Yeah.
I have a question about Ryoma's fake name. Because he's going by Saito Hajime to everyone, and there's at least one person, I think it's Saejima or Shinpachi in this game, who's like, oh, you just think of that name now, and I guess I wanted to know if it's like, is it a pun? Is it a joke? Like, is there a reason that he knows that he made up the name, or is it just that he can read him?
I think it was more of like, you sound awkward when you say that. This is yeah. I think it's just like kind of like a hint that I think it's to keep the tension of do they know who he really is? Mm-hmm. Are they trying? Do they know who he is? And they're just like kind of poking at him to see if he falls apart. So I did notice those things, but I was kind of kept it. I was like, oh shit. Did you kill my dad? Do you know who I am? Do you know I'm part of the Loyalist party? Like, ooh, who's gonna catch me? But yeah.
Sure. We mentioned Mukurogai a second ago. By a second, I mean 20 minutes. Shango Kongo wrote in with
counting?
Wrote in with a message after my heart. Same situation for me. Saying, I randomly stumbled into a shop in Mukurogai that sold the Light of Heaven katana, which has roughly 500 more attack than the base katana. It's extremely powerful and admittedly looks pretty awesome, but I kind of feel disappointed. The gradual climb towards becoming an overpowered badass is one of my favorite parts of these games, but why would I not buy this sword? It wasn't even that expensive. 8.5 Rio. That's like early in chapter 2 you can get that, and I spent all my money on it, and I still haven't found a sword that's better than it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it has a cool light effect that shows up in cutscenes when you draw your sword. It's this giant bright light coming off this katana. You can go back to Mukurogai and get it. But have you
Whenever I go, it's like light out and all the shops are closed. Like, what a bad way to operate your business.
But all those wonderful bars with their mystery stews.
Yeah.
But are y'all getting into the gear score at all?
I've tried. Like, I'm trying to like understand the crafting system. To like upgrade the smithy and like craft better guns because I know it's not going to be great forever, and it's just like so complicated. It's kind of complicated, but just like gathering all the materials like feels a little like Monster Hunter to me. Like going down like the upgrade bars and being like, I want to end up
exactly
here.
Like Monster Hunter. You know, with like this sword can turn into 7 different swords, and I'm like, I don't know which one is good. But I am just going, I mean, I have done some crafting. I'm just going along the very top line of swords because I looked and I saw that I had all the materials to make like the second best one. And so I was like, okay, if I get there, I can do it. And then just today I bought like 40 of the base swords and donated them all to the blacksmith because that's what you need to do to like get the level high enough to be able to use it. And now I just don't have enough money to upgrade my sword, but eventually I will, and then it's over for y'all.
Damn. Yeah, the crafting system feels a bit obtuse to the point where I understood it, but I was like, yeah, I'm not going to engage with this. I don't think I need to. I just need to get better. You know, I just got to avoid more attacks, parry better, and I'll slice the dudes if it takes longer. So be it. Because yeah, some of the like, where do I even find X material or whatever? Where do I even find the money to pay for the
beautiful leaf?
upgrade?
If you know where I can get beautiful leaf, I need one for my gun.
I'm looking for new screws. I buy revolvers and
you can buy those from the smithy.
From the smithy directly?
Yes.
I wasn't able to.
There's a guy right next to him.
Yeah, I didn't see it in the list there.
If you level it up, mine was like
That's
level
probably what it
3,
is.
and then I was able to buy new screws. But like nobody tells you that.
You tell me that.
Yeah.
Me, I'm telling you.
And it's like I looked at that list of pistols, and I was like, I just kind of decided you can upgrade your Model 2 to a Model 3 and then later to a Model 4. And I was like, I guess I'll just do that one. That seems, like as good as anything. And I kind of, they have like gem slots that you can put in things, but it's like, it's this thing that I hate in games where it's like 2% more defense. I'm like, 2%? Like, when would that matter to me?
Yeah.
I have one that's literally 1%. I installed one for 1% defense boost.
Yeah. When I got one that is like, oh, you can get a 6% upgrade to your attack, I'm like, yes, this is the one. I'm going to be so OP. And like, I did the math in my head. It's like, well, if I'm doing 100 damage per slice, I get 6 extra damage. I'd rather just put in the effort to slice that enemy one more time and more than make up for the damage. Like, what am I even doing here? Why do I even care?
Yeah. After 60 slices, you get 1 free slice.
Like, yeah, it's a punch card.
Yeah. But I do like that you get materials for the grunt fights, the random street fights, because I think that gives them a little more purpose and feels less like they're wasting your time, which can sometimes feel that way just because there are so many. You are constantly getting harangued by goons.
I do like whenever one of those random street fights happens near water or on a bridge, and you can just start chucking dudes off.
awesome.
Very satisfying.
Yes.
For sure. Any favorite Heat actions so far? Has anyone got the one where you stuff the oranges in the guy's mouth and smash his head down? Which is
I have
previous games.
I have a
think it's
different one with like, I feel like it's not with oranges, but it's with like chestnuts or something. I can't quite tell what I'm putting in his mouth, but it's something.
Hey, yo.
It's something.
Yeah, the orange one is in the Brawler. I think that's in the Brawler skill tree. So if you want to do that.
Yeah, it's early, but you do have to buy an orange for each time. It spends one orange from your inventory. My favorite is the ground attack for the gunman, which there are a couple that play out, but one of them is kicking a guy into the air and shooting him.
Oh,
in
yeah.
the air.
It's like, what is
juggling him.
DMC?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's what I missed. I really love the way Heat actions work in the brawling Yakuzas. The way they play with your environment and with your specific fight style you have. I think that is a really satisfying, flashy system.
Yeah.
Is the way to build up Heat just fighting, just like doing combos? Because sometimes I feel like my Heat's way up there, and sometimes it feels like I just can't build any up.
Yeah, it's I think as you land hits, you build up Heat, and I stocked up on the healing items that heal you and also boost your Heat gauge. So if you're really hurting for Heat actions, definitely do that. That's a pro tip right there.
I want to say the brawling style, your parry will give you a little bit, and also I have a gem for my gun that boosts Heat like 7% faster, which feels like a joke, but it's noticeably faster.
Yeah, I think that's the one stat that you might want to spec into that's actually going to pay off.
But even then, there's stuff in the skill tree early on that's like, here's a new move you can use when your Heat gauge is at 5, which I have never once gotten to 4. I've never seen it that high.
I bought that one, or I used like a training orb on it so I can like swap it out, and it takes it from 5 to 0. It uses up all of it, and it doesn't even do like 1,000 damage or like whatever you would expect. So yeah, stay away from that one. I don't think it's worth it.
Weird.
I like the Wild Dancer one. I like all of them when you're just near a wall and you can just like smack them up against the wall. But the Wild Dancer one is kind of the most ridiculous, where you like kick someone into the wall, stab them, and then like shoot them in the throat. And then it's like, oh yeah, that did like 300 damage, and then they like get back up and keep fighting you.
Yeah, the one I use is with Swordsman, where you can do one of two things. You can I think you can jump up and just like slash them across the chest, or what I like to do is I stick my sword into their gut and I swing them around, and then toss them off of my sword. They got right back up. I said, all right, I'm good. Let's keep this fight going. I'm like, all right, this is
yeah. It's always
pure
really
Yakuza.
fun when like I kill someone using only gun, and then at the very end of the cutscene, my sword's out, and they're like, "What beautiful swordsman skills!" And I'm like, yep, that's what I was doing.
Oh,
Yeah. So confident in your swordsman skills, you didn't even have to use them.
No, they didn't even see me pull the sword out. That's how fast I was.
Another deepest divey point is just that the dojos that for the different fighting styles, training you in these specific abilities that you might not unlock for what seems like 30 hours. Like unlocking things at the far end of the skill tree. It just feels like they built that and then decided where it should be in the skill tree, and those two teams like never talked. Again, that's been in previous games, I think, and I never really understood it.
yeah. It might be one. Might be one of the systems that they just ported over from the original version. Said, we're not really going to touch it. We're just going to give you what it was back then and deal with it now. I don't know. Yeah,
I guess I'm just surprised they didn't do more modernization after the success of Like a Dragon, but maybe that I'm misperceiving the success of it. But it feels like, it feels like it would have been worth the effort.
Have any of you guys worked with the like the Odachi or any of the kind of secondary weapons? Because I have I have one, but at this point it's like way weaker than my main sword, so I haven't used it. But every skill tree has a, like, if you want, you can also use this other weapon as part of this skill tree, and I haven't really done anything with any of them. There's like a spear.
I just got the cannon. It was just the brawler style, and so I like went to pull out my cannon, and I was like, oh, like this is gonna be really good. It's gonna be so much more powerful than my gun, and I was like literally hurling cannonballs at people with my cannon, and they would just fall down, take a little bit of damage, and get back up. And they were like, that's the 1000 mon cannon. Like, now you have to upgrade your 1000 mon cannon to actually do damage. It's fun though.
Any cannon.
That thing is so funny because as ridiculous as everything we've talked about is, I think that's the most. Where Kiryu's like holding a cannon, like an actual ship cannon out in the street. I'm like, what are you, why are you doing this, dog? Like, that is... It's not where that's not where I draw the line, but it's coming real close to that line. I'm like, all right, y'all need to relax on that. It's very funny though.
Yeah, it's so gigantic. Those special weapons don't give you the experience for that fighting style though, which has made me like not super interested in checking them out.
Oh yeah. There's some. I used them like a few times just to see what was up with them, but you get. I feel like just being more skilled with swordsman or wild dancer was a lot more effective. I think there's potential if you want to like go down the upgrade tree path and really invest time in that, and I think those things can pay off. But I don't know if it's worth the time and effort to do that.
It does seem fun, but an important PSA about guns from Procyon number 6. Hey everyone, I'll chalk it up to the time period of the game, but Ryoma's firearm safety is atrocious. The first rule of firearm safety is to treat every firearm as if it's loaded. When Ryoma first receives his pistol, he does not check to see if it's loaded, and has it pointed directly at Takechi, all while having his finger in the trigger well. He was one sneeze away from disaster.
Well, also the game's key art is him essentially pointing it at his forehead.
Yeah. This ain't Persona 3. This ain't an evoker. Come on now.
I do really like some of the skill descriptions like swear in them, and I think it's so funny that it's like, even when it's describing the basic combo for swordsman, it's like pressing triangle after 4 light hits is damn strong. Like, yeah. That's what it says. It's just like, cool. I'm glad.
I am loving the way we've left it at the end of chapter 4. I thought that ambush fight was a really good end point, and has left me.
And they're like, quick, now you can move and shoot at the same time.
Yeah,
that was a thrill.
They were like, we have given you a gift, and I was like, oh, this is going to be good. And then I walked at a snail's pace with my gun out.
Yeah,
and you shoot slower also.
And you shoot slower, but yes, it was a very cool. You go to like Kiyomizu Temple at night. It's this beautiful temple in Kyoto. You meet Date. I forgot what his new name is, but he has the same exact. He is still a detective, which is wild to me. I'm like, this man is still a detective. Like, give him a break.
And he has the light tan robe too, like same color scheme.
He looks
as
like
his jacket.
his little detective coat.
Yep.
I'm starting to think it's more of a Cloud Atlas thing, where it's like these people's souls.
Yeah.
But
they can only be one thing through time.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was a beautiful location at night, and I'm excited to get back to it. I beat that part like 2 days ago, and I was like, I did this too early. I should have done it the moment before we recorded.
So, the one thing I'll say, I think in that moment was, I obviously I love the drama, and I think that when Nakauka starts or Date starts revealing who he is and how he's your right-hand man also in this game, and that he's like one of the few characters who truly understand, because he calls him Ryoma, and then Ryoma's like, wait, who the hell are you again? Like, I don't know you. And then just like having like, okay, Date is my ride or die. Like, this dude has my back. It just like, I feel like this moment where finally Kiryu or Ryoma has someone to bounce off of, someone that he doesn't have to hide from. I think that was a really cool moment in the story that I was like, oh, okay, now we're building up to more. We're introducing more to these characters, and we're actually understanding their motivations a little bit more, because it is hard to get a read of their motivations. So like chapter 4, leaving off of that, it's like, okay, cool. Now at least I start to see where all these chess pieces start to fall into place. I will say that some of those like bespoke level combat levels where you have to fight through certain sequences, it's another way in which the game shows its age a little bit. So like some of the gimmicks that they pull off are like they're fun, they're cute, whatever. But it's like, hey, there's a firing line down there. Make sure you run behind these statues. Oh no, the statue is destroyed. You got to run to the next one and close the gap on them. I was like, all right, the game engine isn't like the way the game moves isn't necessarily conducive to the things that it asks you to do. But I'm like, all right, that's
yeah.
that's
It's also
fine.
it's like, hey, you know what? If you don't run behind those statues, you're fine.
Like,
You can just kind of dodge and run in there.
Yeah.
Those big guys with
And I
the
will
big weapons, they're swinging at you. It's like they just stand there and block the way if you get too close.
Slow, yeah.
They hit you, or you just stand back and shoot them. Like that also feels pretty archaic. But I like at least having
Yeah.
a gun to deal with them this time.
I felt kind of sad because like my favorite Yakuza grunt is like man who holds chair and stands in doorway. You encounter him in like every single Yakuza game, and in those games he's a lot more of a threat because like you have to fight him like with your fists or a nearby object. And in this game they had him in the early sort of like castle escape when you're escaping being, accused of murdering your father. I forgot what he was holding, but he was still there holding a piece of furniture, and I just took my gun out. And I was like, blap, blap, blap. And I was like, what have they done to my boy? Like, look at what he's been reduced to. He used to be like such a threat. Yeah, man who like holds chairs, stands in doorway.
like, yeah, that is one of the key. That was one of the pillars of Yakuza games. They did that boy dirty in this one because now we got guns. So his job has been taken away by technology.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect point to end it on. Yeah. Anything else? Again, we haven't covered. Let me know, gamers.
Yeah. I think that in the next few chapters, there's gonna be a lot more like story stuff to get into. So I'm really excited about that because I think the politics of the time is definitely my favorite aspect, or at least I think it's the most interesting aspect. Because I don't think Yakuza games generally don't dig into politics in the same way that this one does. So, yeah, it's definitely going to get interesting.
That's a good tease. I in general really like the patience they have to build that stuff up. It feels like we're really just getting started with what the meat of the story is going to actually be, even though it's been a good amount of hours of content so far. So next up, we are playing chapters 5 through 9 for next week, which is, of course, Tuesday, March 7th. We'll be recording that next episode. So the day before that, March 6th, the post calling for questions on our Patreon will go up. Questions and comments. And again, that's chapter 5 through 9. A bit of a smaller section for a bit of a shorter gap, the 1 week. And then we're going to have a 2-week break, I believe. What is that? 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Let me do mental math. March 6th to March 27th.
3.
That's
right?
3. Cool.
Yeah, 7 to 28, yeah.
Even better. So it'll be a 3-week gap to do chapters 10 through 15 and then, or 10 through the finale and all the side stuff, everything like that. So once again, chapter 5 through 9 by March 6th, we're going to be talking about that. And I damn can't wait.
Yeah.
I damn ass can't wait.
Look, we're signing off. I'm going to start playing. Like, genuinely, I have been upset that I couldn't keep playing this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And apparently that what I said earlier about Resident Evil 4 Deepest Dive, apparently we didn't announce that yet. So I'm so happy.
I thought we did.
You
broke embargo.
No, I thought that we did.
Did
but
we?
I don't know anymore. Yeah.
I think Ben was like, if you think about it, you can
He was
figure out
heavily hinting
what
it. He was like, oh, watch out. Resident Evil 4 is coming. What if we talked about it a bunch?
The real
show that
shock
we
is
talked
that
about stuff.
I'm not on that one, even though I spend every waking moment of my life talking about Resident Evil 4.
Take that up with Ben. That's on him.
That is a shock.
Oh, no, I demanded it because I couldn't wait to play through it. I said, you can't make me play this over 3 weeks.
Can't hold me
sure,
back.
Right on, good call. Michael, got anything to plug?
Yes, you can find me and all my stuff at Michael P. Hyam on Twitter. And since I have been laid off, I have been extremely busy as a freelancer. Stuff on Polygon, back on GameSpot, doing things for IGN, on Kind of Funny content, on Giant Bomb content. I'm on MinnMax, baby. You go on patreon.com/MinnMax. You help the homies out. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Don't pay me for this. Pay Ben and friends.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm out there. I've still got a lot more things lined up. It's a very busy month, so yeah, I'm in the mix doing things.
People can read your damn Ishin review on GameSpot.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, maybe you want to hold off until March 28th on that one. But yes, I reviewed Yakuza Ishin, or like Dragon Ishin, for GameSpot. If you do want to check it out, please do. Lucy James voiced my video review, and it is extremely well done, continuing the tradition of covering the Yakuza franchise for GameSpot.
Nice. The legacy.
Yes.
Jacob, have you ever thought about making anything?
No, I think I'll stick to this. But if you would like to hear more of me speaking in depth about games on a podcast and not a video, me and my friend Blake Hester, Game Informer reporter extraordinaire, have restarted our podcast called Something Rotten, where we are talking about the kind of gross, violent, nihilistic games of history. You can listen to our whole series on the Manhunt franchise, Manhunt 1 and 2, and all of the just absolute lunatic politics that went into those games releases. Just the podcast is called Something Rotten. You can hear that wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, Blake Hester's one of my favorite game journalists out there.
And he just wrote a piece on how shock sites shape the modern internet, which is both very relevant to our podcast and also a good read. That's on Vice.
Yeah, so if you're a big fan of Goatsy, go check that out.
I didn't know that came out. Love Blake. Happy birthday, Blake. Birthday in the next few days. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Sarah, you've been streaming this game, haven't you?
Yeah. I've been streaming every waking moment of this game, and if there's any footage playing in the background of this, and you notice that the Kiryu is solely using a gun, it's probably from my stream.
Oh.
So that's mine. You can catch me finishing this game up on my Twitch channel. I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So we're having a lot of fun with it at SarahPods.
Nice. As for me, I just want to plug the new show plus we did, Rumbleverse Funeral. That just will have gone up on our YouTube channel before this did. We look back at the life of Rumbleverse, one of my very favorite games of the past year that was tragically cut down too soon. A lot of fun gameplay moments and discussing the growth of it. That was a fun stream. But again, till next time, we'll catch you next week for part 2 of the Like a Dragon Ishin Deepest Dive. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And as Ryoma would say, got a blast. So hoping someone would come to me.
Did you know that you can more than double the amount of podcasts from MinnMax every single week by supporting us at the $5 tier on Patreon? You don't have to listen through the browser or anything dumb like that. You'll get access to a private RSS feed if you support us on Patreon. You put it in your favorite podcast app, and then bam, you can listen to our weekly bonus podcast Party Chat, the podcast versions of the Deepest Dives, MinnMax interviews, Max spoilers, and you get the MinnMax Show podcast a day earlier than everybody else. So please help support independent games media. Head over to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's.